A quick final word on this before we move on, because we've got a few other questions to get to.
Well, I think the questioner was onto something. I mean, the GST is a regressive tax, and I don't agree with the Premier, with all due respect. You can't spend a dollar twice. You know, Mike said we'll increase the GST to pay for health. Joe Hockey said increase the GST to pay for personal income tax. Catherine's organisation might suggest increasing the GST to pay for a corporate tax cut. Others might have suggested increasing the GST to get back to budget surplus. You raise a dollar, you can only spend it once. The fact is, increasing the GST to pay for health is not tax reform, it's a tax rise. It's just a tax increase. Now, we can argue about whether the tax increase is necessary or not, but don't dress it up as tax reform. The fact of the matter is, if you increase the GST, you have to spend close to 60% on compensation. And then you've only got 40% of what you've raised left, and it doesn't go very far, and the tax reform debate is being dragged down the simplistic path of saying if you're pro-increasing the GST, which impacts on low-income earners the most, then you're pro-tax reform. If you're not, then you're anti-tax reform.
Well, Chris, how would you fund that?
Well, we're here, Mark, because your Prime Minister cut $80 billion out of your budget and didn't even give you a telephone call to tell you, and now you're paying for it by increing the GST.
No,
your proposal.
That's not true. That is a different argument.
Okay, he called you first. But
the question...
that's why we're here. You said you'd fight it all the way. You said you'd fight those $80 billion worth of cuts all the way, and now you're not fighting them. You just...
The point you have to make, and this is very important on this GST debate, because Labor spent a lot of time saying how terrible GST was. You got in the government, you did nothing about it. You had the option.
The sympathy with Sheila here, I have to say.
you had the option to take it away, but you didn't. You didn't, Chris. And ultimately, the regressive nature you talk about, which has been raised, you can deal with.
Well, only by compensation, which takes up 60% of the revenue.
All right, OK, now we're into this circular political argument. It is time to... Exactly, Sheila's father probably be very happy watching this. It is time to move along.
Sheila's father was concerned with... There at a time of Lee Kuan Yew. And, of course, there was no opposition in Singapore.
OK, Jeffrey.
Sheila, if any electorate at that time dared to vote for the opposition, their electricity, their sewerage...
OK, Jeffrey, before we lose the plot,